G'day friends and fans, welcome to Day Talk Stuff Ukraine War Update for the 16th of August 2026. I'm your host, the author David Applegate, author of the books The Boyhood of Cain, Power Games, Into the Iceman, and The Erratic Tales from the Empire. As the war continues, I shall continue to bring you the comprehensive news and updates from both sides of the war. All my links are in the link tree. You can find me on YouTube, Rumble, BitChute, Odyssey. Now, as we can see on the Ukrainian map, the Russians have quite the combat operations going on and quite the attacks. In fact, today, Russia and Ukraine traded blows at each other's capitals, with Russia hitting lots more targets across Ukraine as well, including Dnipro, Kryvyi. Now, there was talk about a strike down here as well. I just can't. What's it called? But 3 hours ago. Now, it says Odessa region. Yeah, that's all they say. So they hit a house as a result of electronic warfare. Now, according to, there are different reports. A NATO exercise, F-18, was on an air patrol about a drone that violated Romanian airspace. Now, there are different reports. It is now widely believed they're talking about the same drone. The drone was shot down, the drone was attempted to intercept as it was coming through, that it allegedly, but as a result of electronic warfare, it lost control and flew into a house. Now, the thing is, it was a surveillance drone, believed to be a surveillance drone. There's no explosion. It's just smashed into a window and fell to the ground. It has been handed over to Ukrainian authorities. But there are several incidences reported over the last week in Latvia, with attacks coming from Ukraine, crossing also into Lithuania, that they've been flying drones off the coast into Kaliningrad. Now, Kaliningrad was captured, was once the outpost of the Germanic Empire, during World War II, was claimed by Poland, I think, initially. But during World War II, it was captured and kept by the Russians and remains Russian because of the Russian majority. But it's like parts of Poland. When Germany lost, they were pulled apart. Now, Germany has renounced to be part of NATO, part of the EU. Germany renounced all foreign territory, former territories. But they don't ask that of Ukraine, who occupies part of Poland, occupies part of Hungary, occupies part of Russia as part of the denationalization that was going on under the Soviet Union. And they refuse to acknowledge that. Whether you believe what's right or wrong is beside the point. You still have to acknowledge that your country was put together from other territories. Now, Russia doesn't want to give up Kaliningrad because it's a Baltic Sea access for their fishing fleets. And their fishing fleets do suffer parts of the year where they have no other safe port in the north. But they have way too many fishing fleets to even need Kaliningrad. Kaliningrad is just a trophy now. But it's a trophy they don't want to give up or give back to Poland. Or, technically, Kaliningrad and Poland belong to Germanica. It depends what part of history you want to benchmark where the borders go. So whenever someone from Ukraine or one of the Ukrainians tell you that, we've got to restore the borders, the same with Palestine, got to restore the borders. Okay, return Palestine to Rome. Because that's where it came from. Now, if you look up Palestinian coin, on the back of the Palestinian coin, is either a Roman soldier or a or a 7-pointed candle. Those aren't Islamic symbols, bro. And it's the same with Ukraine. Most of Ukraine's culture derives from the Greeks who actually settled Crimea in the first place. The Slavs were driven west out of Russia by the Mongols. People, I know the past is the past, but at what point do you draw the modern borders? At what point do you say enough's enough? Enough with your arrogance, enough with your ignorance, enough with you always wanting to negotiate from a position of strength, enough of always wanting to get your way. You don't always get what you want, but at least may you get what you deserve. And right now, by waging war, you have war waged on you. And whether that's Ukraine who waged war on the ethnic Russians, or Russia waging war on Ukraine in revenge, it doesn't matter. War begets the war. And the only way to stop war is to get both sides to stop. And we have peace talks in North Korea that are probably more fruitful right now than talking to Zelensky. Zelensky is a maximalist, and he has angered everyone around him. And yet, the left thinks all they think of is my underdog privilege, bro. I got to always cheer from the underdog. Why? You like little kids who kick people in the shins and run away, do you? You like salty minorities who engage in terrorism so that they can create ethnic-only zones, right? So that's what you're really saying. Did you like violence? And then you cry when violence is begotten to you. You're no different than gang mentality. My way or the highway. No. Again, that's both sides of this war. And a lot of people I've spoken with personally agree with me. It's just that it's not a popular viewpoint to have in general. No. Most people want to hear how Ukraine is the sun shining out, the sun shines out of Ukraine's crevices. It ain't happening. I'm not going to glaze Ukraine. Nor am I going to condemn them for stuff they haven't done. But corruption? Oh boy. They are one of the most corrupt countries in the world, and Europe won't do a goddamn thing about it. And that is really boils my blood when all you have all day long are people on Facebook saying, "Hey, Trump's corrupt." Did he steal $1 billion and sell them? Did he sell $1 billion of arms to Sudan? No, that was Ukraine. Those were donated arms. And now there's an investigation into that. Now the UN quietly admits that arms are flowing out of Ukraine and there's nothing they can do about it. Well, what's the point of the UN if they can do nothing other than bark? They're like buying a chihuahua to be a watchdog. Yeah, they can make a lot of noise, but at the end of the day, the burglar's just going to step on it. So today we have a lot of fighting in Sumy. Like I said, Russians opened up a new front. It's going to only get bigger. Now, it can, maybe, as they gain more territory, start to shift sideways. And that's what we're seeing now. Russia's shifting its focus up here in the north. It doesn't seem to be engaged in any serious offensives in Kupiansk right now. Most of the focus is from Lyman through to Zaporozhye. And in most of these areas, as you can see, there's been virtually no change to the map. Russia's only made tiny increments. But that's their strategy, tiny increments. Now, Ukraine keeps telling us every day how they're blowing up Russian logistics. Yet, Ukraine in 40 days have taken less territory from Russia than Russia's taken from Ukraine. Russia still has a net gain. So, even with all the heroics and all the theatrics and all the claims that they took 27 towns. Yeah, this gap hasn't closed, but it's closing. You can see they've made more headway, but in other areas they haven't made much headway. But they have dug in, and they have not been pushed back here much, though they have been pushed back. They were and have infiltrated all this area. Ukraine has issued warning notices all the way through here. Are they asking citizens to be on the alert from Russians? But I'm telling you, if someone's sitting in the war zone, either they're really, really, really stubborn or really, really suicidal, or secretly they're waiting for the Russians to come and liberate them. It's hard to tell which is which these days. I would not say all of them are waiting for the Russians to come liberate them, because I think a lot of ethnic Russians left. Most of you who wanted to leave left. Those who've left Russia have already left Russia. Right now, I think the UN is right. The amount of refugees from Ukraine is only going to go down. That most of it will now be internal displacement, because most of the people in Ukraine don't think Russia's going to go much further. They're not going to. They're going to take, as one Ukrainian commentator said, the Russians are going to take what they take. They won't care about Ukraine, and they'll leave the empty bones behind, right? And they're going to pick Ukraine apart, and there's nothing Ukraine can do about it other than waste lives on this war. And that's what Zelensky's doing. He's wasting lives on this war so he could say, I defended Ukraine. That's all it is. And that is the most saddest of all motives. Glory is the saddest of all motives, because millions will die and the history will not condemn, because so many people out there still think glory is the underdog defending against the invader. Once upon a time, what's his name? Cortez was viewed as a liberator. You know that, right? AOC's descended from that Cortez, by the way, yes. But Cortez was seen as a liberator. He liberated 12 tribes from the oppressive slavers, murderers, rapists, cannibals that were plaguing South America. They begged him, right? When when Cortez landed, tribes went against him. When he beat them, they turned to him for help against their enemies and explained, that they'd been invaded time and time again. And he saw a golden opportunity because they were offering gold, women, and land. Now, he took the opportunity. And Ukraine is nowhere near that, right? It may, on the surface level, look like, Russia wants to be seen as the liberator. It will never be, because the West will never acknowledge its own sins. Now, they're nowhere near the sins of the Inca or the Mayans, although you can't condemn all the Mayans, but you can condemn, I think, the false government of Ukraine, the most corrupt country in Europe, that they cannot get out of their own, that all they want to do is sweep everything under the rug. Now, as we look around the map, Russia's made no significant gains today. They've only made paltry gains. Now, Ukraine have also overstated their so-called liberation of this territory all the way through here. They've added up the last 60 days. I said yesterday it was 40 days. I was wrong. It's actually over 60 days. Now, Russia has backwards and forwards in this area, and they've already started to retake territory. They have made small gains back, and the Ukrainian counteroffensive has petered out and been defeated. by these red dots. The Russians have pushed back against the Ukrainian counteroffensive, but they've made no significant gains in Zaporozhye, but they made small gains. And they're pretty much holding here and there the rest of the way. Now, Ukraine claims to have destroyed 1 million square miles of Russian warehouses. That's been grossly exaggerated according to open source intelligence and other services to say it's nowhere near 1/10 of that, what they've destroyed. It's the same with everything. They need to justify this war to its people. And so the Latvia story disappears. A Ukrainian drone over Latvia headed for Kaliningrad didn't happen. Because they don't want to admit that Estonia, Finland, Sweden, and other countries have third-party interference and could be rogue military operations, rogue intelligence operations, trying to provoke a wider war so that they can get their big budgets and have their own heroic moments. Everyone wants to be the hero of their own story. But until history stops making conquistadors... Now, again, the reason why conquistadors were seen as a hero is liberators. But the modern day equivalence is no more conquistadors, right? No more conquests. Right? Spain thought ultimately the whole Spanish Empire, the whole thing, ended in misery for everyone. They started with good intentions, but it ended in misery. And that's the story of history. It always starts with good intentions. Well, not always. Definitely the massacre of Medina didn't start with good intentions. But there are most histories that are totally misunderstood. Not Napoleon, though. He is a complete and utter bastard. And again, history should remember him as a butcher, not as a misunderstood revolutionary. No, he was a butcher. He butchered his own people. He butchered his own officers. He butchered people because he was a greedy, selfish commie. And the French Revolution was nothing but butchery. Most revolutions, India's revolution, butchery and racism. And India's gone from crying about colonialism to being a colonialist power. And yet, this is why the mainstream media still keep the narratives of Ukraine alive, but the majority of their stories are buried, and they will not speak of the corruption in Ukraine. But it's as strong as ever. And we'll get to that later. First, a little message from me to you, appealing for your support for this channel. And one of the ways you can support this channel is to buy my coffee mugs. Empire Vales, that's one word, empirevales.myshopify.com, your one-stop shop for enchanting treasures based on my writing. Now, as I said, Ukraine and Russia have traded direct blows on each other's capital cities. Ukraine has had a massive fire which devoured several blocks of warehouses, including a steel processing plant and a drone production facility. In Povolnia, they lost, which, by the way, I don't think they mapped. Oh, yes, they did. Nope. They did not. Wait, is that it? No. Russia hit an oil processing facility in Povolnia. It was, yeah. Yeah, Moscow mayor said on social media over 600 drones, with 201 destroyed just in Moscow region. Others were destroyed along the way. A handful made it through because, yeah. Now, according to TASS, the US have quietly and secretly, the US Department of Justice have launched 49 probes into weapons supplies to Ukraine that Pentagon Department of State, Homeland Security, FBI, US Navy and Air Force task forces are cooperating with Ukraine on the Prosecutor's General Office into massive fraud by Ukrainian army procurement to procure arms from the US through third parties such as Latvia, Estonia, and Finland. And these arms, they go to Latvia, Estonia, and other countries to avoid detection by Russians, but they're not making it to Ukraine. They're being sold back to the countries that bought them, and Ukraine pockets the commission on the sale because Ukraine gets a discount. European countries are buying arms from US legally, but using Ukraine as the purchaser, and the arms never go to Ukraine. And these arms, people in Ukraine are getting the commissions. Ukraine isn't getting the weapons. And some of these weapons are being procured by people who then get sold on to others. So you have organisations which may or may not be working with the governments of other countries, as well as people in the government of Ukraine. It is such a complex web of lies and deception. And Russia just loves, just like liberals, if you do something wrong, Russia will point it out, liberals will point it out. But they never, of course, look into introspectively, of course. But the best propaganda, I've always warned, the best propaganda is when someone uses the truth against you, which is always why you should police your own side first. Liberals will never do that. Russia will never do that. And Ukraine, well, actually, we might start to see changes in Ukraine. And I did congratulate Ukraine and some Ukrainians for standing up to the corruption. It's like Italy. Italy is slowly standing up to the corruption, but it's got a long way to go. So is Germany. So is France. Europe only pretends to be on top of corruption. The reality is they only take out the competition. Just like how Nancy Pelosi only cracked down on Republicans, never on her own. Oh, yes, she did fine people, just to have it on record. You can look it up. More Republicans fined than Democrats. But the Democrats, you look at the disparity. AOC got $500 fine. And so did Little Miss Somalia. Only got a $500 fine for misuse of funds. Now, according to the RT, NATO scrambled warplanes to shoot down drones flying over Latvia. Why did the story disappear from the West? Because it turned out they were Ukrainian drones. And as I said, Russia's made small gains. No major town has fallen. And again, Russia puts up a more realistic picture of the war than Ukraine does, where Ukraine will tell you, we killed 10,000 orcs, we killed them all. Yeah. If Ukraine was half as successful as Ukraine claimed, Russia they'd be halfway to Moscow. Again, pro-Ukrainians don't even get 2 minutes into my videos because they're cowards. They don't want to face the truth, and yet whenever they have some sort of amazing revelation, we got Trump now, we got him now, episode 1138 of We Got Trump Now, comrades. They'll spend the next month talking about DOJ filings. The DOJ filings are filing to dismiss fraudulent charges brought against Donald Trump by rogue members of the government trying to load up Trump with so many charges that he spends all his days in court unable to do anything. Look it up. Look up Lawfare Against Trump. LAWARFAIR. They are an organization dedicated to fundraising and engaging in legal. They act as an NGO, but in reality, they're funneling millions of dollars through tax-free or tax-exempt donations to fund lawyers to harass Trump and Trump supporters. Legal Defense Fund, Act Blue, they should not have, and they should not have legal tax-free status, but they do because it's my free speech, man. Well, fund it with your own money. Fund your own, But that's the corrupt, There's never going to be a time we do not have corrupt politicians on either side. Let's admit it, there's no rule that says a Democrat can't run as a Republican. Otherwise, we wouldn't have Trump. We wouldn't have half the Republicans we have. I'm not against people changing parties. What I'm against is people who pretend to be Republican because they can't win elections. And that's how we get the uni-party. I don't want a uni-party situation. Unfortunately, you have two very bitterly divided camps in America. One that wants a productive uni-party, bipartisanship, and that dominates Congress right now, which is why nothing gets done. And then you have the more bitterly divided Senate, who actually believes in opposition and opposing the opposing political party with as much trickery and chicanery as they can. And ultimately, at the end of the day, Democrats can't win elections. They have to bully weak Republicans like Susan Collins into crossing the line because of her weak electoral stance and the fact that the only way she wins elections is the fact that 12% of Democrats can't stand other Democrats. But, it's like Vermont. Vermont keep electing Bernie Sanders because it puts them on the map, because as far as I'm concerned, so Vermont, you want to be commies? We'll cut you all off from federal funding. So, hey, you're free to be a commie, but it's free. Yeah. So, if you really want peace in Ukraine, you should have spent all that time getting politicians to stop funding war instead of but you keep saying jobs. Every time Democrats talk about jobs and government jobs and good union jobs, they're talking about defense contracts, right? They're fooling you. They're war profiteers. So, thank you all for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. Please support the channel. Support me on Ko-Fi, Patreon, buy my books, buy my merch. Now all my links are in the link tree description below in my profile, or scan the QR code on the screen. I appreciate each and every one of you. See you in the next video. Bye for now.